Hello everyone, myself Purushotham, working as assistant professor in Department of Computer Science and Engineering, MLR. In this session, I am going to explain about thread class methods. So this is the overview of this session. So first I am going to explain the list of thread class methods. Then after I am going to explain the sleep, next active count method and some sample examples I am going to discuss now. Okay. So let's get started today's session. So coming to the list of thread class method. So as we know that if you want to work with a multi-threading environment, we need to create object to the thread class. Now thread is a predefined class, so which is defined inside java.lang package. Thread is a predefined package and which is defined inside the java.lang package. Now this predefined class have what predefined methods. So what are the predefined methods there inside a thread class means? So these are the predefined methods. Okay. So there are multiple predefined methods are available inside a thread class. So I am going to explain few of them. Okay. So set method, get method, get priority, is live, join, sleep, start, active count, current thread and get ID. So all these are the predefined methods. Okay. So these predefined methods I will explain the coming sessions. So but in this session I am going to explain about a sleep method and active count method. Now, so coming to the sleep method. So the sleep is a predefined method. The sleep is a predefined method which is present inside a java.lang.thread class. Okay. So the thread class is having the sleep method. If you want to access this sleep method, compulsory we need to use what thread class. Okay. And it is a static class. You can see here sleep is a static class. The static means what is advantage of using static keyword means without creating object. So but just by using the class name we can call what the sleep method. If you want to use a sleep method, so no need to create an object. So directly just use what thread dot sleep method. Why means here the sleep is a static method. You can see here it is a static method. So how can we call the static members means by using the class name we can call. So the sleep method is a present inside a thread class. So directly you can use the class name and you can call the sleep method. Now, so what is the functionality of the sleep method means? Here it causes the currently executing thread to sleep for the specified number of milliseconds. You can see here the sleep method is expecting the parameter is a milliseconds. It is a long type. Milliseconds you need to pass the long format, the long data type format. So using this sleep method, you can temporarily cease the execution of a particular thread. If you want to cease any thread for particular specified time, you can use what the sleep method. Okay, and the sleep method, whenever you are using the sleep method, it will throws interrupted exception. So this is very important. So in any program, if you are using the sleep method, so the sleep method will be throws what interrupted exception. Interrupted exception is a checked exception. It is a checked exception. Checked exception means the checked exception means exception handling is a mandatory. Exception handling is a mandatory. Either you can use a throws keyword, you can bypass, or you can use what the try catch. So if you are using the sleep method in your program, so compulsory we need to handle. Okay, why means it is a throwing interrupted exception. It is a checked exception. The checked exception. So compulsory exception handling is a mandatory, or else we need to bypass the exception. Bypassing the exception, you need to use a throws keyword. For handling exception, you need to use what the try catch. And so what parameters here we need to pass means we need to pass the parameters, that is what the milliseconds. Okay, and the millisecond is what the long type data only you need to pass. Okay, so suppose if you are passing any other, so it will throw the compile time error. Now here it will generate one more exception, that is what illegal argument exception. Okay, so when it will generate the illegal argument exception means you can see here if the value of the millisecond, if it is a negative, okay, it will generate illegal argument exception. the sleep method here we need to pass what the time in milliseconds. The sleep method we need to pass the time in milliseconds, but the time value always the positive, the time value always positive. Okay, by mistake if you are passing any negative value in argument, so it will throw the exception. The exception name is a illegal argument exception. So compulsory we need to pass the time in positive number. Okay, now if you are passing the negative, so it will throw the exception, that is what the illegal argument exception. Okay, so one more exception already explained, interrupted exception. If you are using the sleep method itself, automatically it will throw the word interrupted exception. Okay, interrupted is a checked exception. Okay, if any other thread in the operating system can interrupt this type of sleep method, so it will throw the interrupted exception. So interrupted exception is a part of what the checked exception. So exception handling is a mandatory, either you can use a try catch or you can use what the throws keyword. Okay, so now this sleep method I want to explain with a simple program. Okay, so here you can see, here I created one class. So the class is having, you can see here, it is having message like it will print hello MLR for 10 times. Here I used what the sleep method. As we know that if you use a sleep method, so the compulsory you need to handle by using the try catch, or you can use a throws keyword. Okay, so here I am using the try catch. So in try block I mentioned what the sleep 1000 second and interrupted exception. So here I am using what the try catch. So compulsory we need to use, otherwise it will not execute your program. And if I execute this program, so it will print what hello MLR for what every second. It will print hello MLR message for every second. Okay, if you want you can see the same program. So here I will take my own class. So here I will take the my thread. The class name is a my thread. Extends. So I want to create a thread. So here I am taking what the thread class. I created what child class to the thread class, and I want to override the run method. So here I override in the run method. Now I want to print a message for 10 times. So int I equals to 0, I is less than 10, I plus plus, system.out.println hello MLR. Okay, now without a sleep method I am writing this program. So after sleep method, so what is the difference now we can see. Okay, now I want to execute this program. So to execute this thread, so what we need to do means you need to create object to the thread class, means my thread I created, and the t1 dot start. So if you want to execute this code, so you need to start the thread. New thread will be created and automatically it will invoke the run method. Okay, now you can see here, so it will print automatically, it will print this message for 10 times. Okay, but my requirement is I want to print this message for every second. So what we need to do means, so here I want to use a sleep method. As we know that the sleep method is a part of the thread class. So here I am using the thread class, and sleep method is a static method. You can use a class name. So class name, here I am using the sleep and I am passing what 1000. Okay, now if you run this program without handling or without bypassing this exception, it will throw what error. Okay, it will throw the compile time error. You can see unreported exception java.lang uninterrupted exception must be caught or declared to be thrown. Means either you can use what throws keyword or you can use what the try catch. So here I will use a try catch. So this is the risky line. So what I will do means, so here I will take a try, and what exception it is raising means it is raising what interrupted exception. So interrupted exception E I will write, and so E dot print stack trace or else system.out.println whatever. That's it. Now you can see here, for every second this message will be print. You can see here every second hello MLR will be print for 10 times. Means to execute this entire program it will take what the 10 seconds. Now here if you want you can mention what the time. like suppose if you want to mention that for every message, if you want to print for 3 seconds, you can pass what 3000, means here we need to pass the time in milliseconds, as we know that for every second. So we need to pass 1000 milliseconds. So for every second means if you want to pass 1000 milliseconds, you are passing 3000 means 3 seconds it will take. You can see here for every message, now it will print after 3 seconds. Now you can see the next message will come after 3 seconds. Here the sleep method you are using, but the sleep method, the time must be positive. Okay, so suppose by mistake if you are passing the negative value, so the minus 3000 also it is a long data type only, syntactically there is no mistake, but here it will throw the exception. You can see here the exception is a illegal argument exception. You can see the illegal argument exception. The time must be positive here, but the time here you are passing what the negative, so it will throw the exception. The exception name is a illegal argument exception. Okay, so this is about what the sleep method. So whenever you are using the sleep method, so compulsory make sure that. So next method, active count method. Okay, so active count also one of the predefined method which is defined inside a thread class. So this method is used to find number of threads in active state, the number of threads in active state. So as we know that, so here CPU, suppose assume here in a thread I have what the multiple threads like T1, T2, T3 and T4. Now the which thread will be executed on the CPU we cannot predict, and this will be decided by the thread scheduler. This will be decided by the thread scheduler. Now suppose if the T1 got a chance to execute, now the T1 will be enter into the active state. Okay, and the CPU, suppose the T2 also got a chance, now the T2 also it will enter into the active state, means the CPU now the switch between what the T1 and the T2. Now the T1 is active and the T2 is active. So the multiple threads are in active state, means the multiple threads are currently running on CPU. Okay, now active count method what it does means it will return the number of threads which are in active state, means currently how many threads are running on CPU, so that thread information it will return. Okay, so using active count we can get what the number of threads in active state. So to work with the active count method, so here we need to use what active count, and here it will return the integer value. So active count is a predefined method, and the predefined method is returning what the integer value. Why means it will return the count number of what active threads which are currently running on the CPU. Now if you are not using any other thread, so in a simple Java program, so how many threads it will run means it will run the 2 threads. The by default the thread count for every Java program, by default for every Java program the thread count is 2. Okay, so what are the 2 default thread means, one is a main thread and second one is a monitor thread. Okay, so first thread is a main thread and second one is a monitor thread. So 2 threads for every Java program it will run in the background. Okay, now so if you want to work with the active count, so here we need to use what the thread class. Okay, now so I will explain the same program here. You can see now for every second this message is printing, means how many threads currently running. Now we'll see. Okay, before that, so first of all I want to show, so what are the default threads. Default active thread count. So default active thread count if you want to know, so just use a thread class thread dot active count. Okay, and active count also it is a static method, so simply you can use what the class name and directly you can call this method. Okay, so no need to create object here. Now it will return what the count is 2. You can see the default active thread count is 2. One is a main thread and second one is a monitor thread for every Java program. So main thread will be there. Okay, now here I will create my own thread here. So my thread T1 equals to new my thread. and T1 dot start. T1 dot start. Now I want to know the number of threads currently is running, active thread count after T1 thread, active thread count. Okay, so after T1 thread I want to know the active thread count. Okay, now you can see here it will be 3. Now you can see here, so default thread is what, before starting the T1 only 2. Now the T1 is started, now the count is increased by 1. Okay, now you can see here the count is 3. Okay, and again I want to create one more thread, so I will create one more thread here. Now this time I will take thread 2. Now if you want to know after starting of T2, if you want to know, you can see the count. You can see initially it is a 2, after starting the T1 it is a 3, after starting a T2 it is a 4. Okay, so total the 4 threads are running. Now after done with the execution, so if you want to print what the number of thread counts, so here, okay, before better I will use what 5 only. So I will wait for the 10 seconds, I will wait the 10 seconds and again I will print message. After T1 and T2 execution. So after T1 and T2 execution, active thread count I want. Okay, now here you are using the sleep method. As we know that if you are using the sleep method, so compulsory you need to use a try catch or you can use a throws keyword. So this time I am not using a throws keyword, so directly just I will bypass by using throws keyword. So here I will use interrupted exception. Now you can see here, so initially it is a 2, next it is a 3, next after T2 it is a 4. But after done with the execution of what the 2 threads, now you can see the count is a 2. Okay, so here I will write simple message. After T1 and T2 execution. Now you can see here the default count initially it is 2. Next after T1 starting the count is increased by 1 and after T2 count is incremented by 1. So total 4, and after done with the T1 and T2 execution, now you can see it is coming back to what the default capacity, that is what the 2. Okay, so the 2 threads are executing the currently, that is a main and monitor thread. Okay, so this is about what active count method. The same example I just explained. So coming to the summary of this session. So in this session, so I have explained so some thread class method, the list of thread class methods, and in thread class method I have explained the sleep method and active count method. Okay, so in next session I am going to explain so some other methods inside a thread class. Okay, so that's about this session. Thank you.